Is it boring to pretty much assume that Jannik Sinner is going to walk away with this one for a third year in a row? Because, Ben, man, I can't see anyone taking this guy down this year.
Well, there's another guy I've heard of. I think
Who's that again?
number one. I think he has the number one ranking.
Fair, yeah.
First name starts with a C, last name starts with an A. You're
lock them in, but lock those two in then in the finals. No.
Well, sure. But what? Well, obviously there's a debate to be had here. I mean, Alcaraz could certainly win the Australian Open, and that's the one trophy kind of missing in the cabinet out of the slams. Of course, he wants to complete the career slam. That's a huge goal of his, and I know Jannik Sinner obviously beat him at the tail end of the year at the ATP Finals. But look at what Carlos did to him in the finals at the U.S. Open. There's no reason to think Alcaraz, who leads this head-to-head, could not, of course, win this title in Melbourne. Is it more kind of surface dependent? This lines up better for you for Jannik?
Yeah, that's it. It's partially the surface, although, look, Alcaraz is no slouch on hard courts, as he's proven. I feel like Sinner just comes out of the gate flying. I also feel like Sinner was just picking up speed in the last half of 2025, and he didn't even get a full season, right? And we don't have to get into the reasons for that. That's already well known, but yeah, he did miss a chunk of the season. Did that help him to stay fresher, actually? I don't know. Who knows? But I think he's just, gunning for a full season on tour to show what he can do without all those distractions. And Ben, when you think about it, the last couple of years, he has had to deal with a lot of distractions, and, they're warranted. He brought this on himself. Him and his team brought this on themselves. But nonetheless, to be asked about it all the time, to have that in the back of your mind, to wonder what's going to happen next and how you're going to be received in different venues and tournaments by the fans and people like that. So I think the fact that he's played this good, carrying all that with him around tournament to tournament, I feel like now probably he, and it's a scary thought, can hit even more freely, which is really, I don't even think we've seen the best version of Jannik Sinner yet. And that could be scary, because I hope that the two can continue trading blows and can keep this rivalry as entertaining and enticing as it's been. But part of me wonders if Sinner has still another gear to kind of unlock where he could assume control of this rivalry. And from last year, I'm a huge Carlos Alcaraz fan. Like, I love watching the guy. And I picked him many times, I think, when we would have these chats. But right now, I've just got this feeling that Sinner's unlocking a new level.
Wow. So you're on the Jannik train big time here. If you're watching, listening, our GoFundMe for Matchpoint Canada is still open and live if you want to lend your support. We are still independent, entering our 8th season as Canada's premier tennis podcast. So any support you can lend as we continue this journey is very welcome for sure.
To help us feeling positive and optimistic as we carry on and get closer to the decade mark of this podcast, which truly, biases aside, I do feel that we bring, the most amount of Canadian tennis news to the table and have for years. And it's interesting because you look back at some of the players we talked to when we first started, who are now established, like bona fide WTA and ATP stars. And we've still got great access to those players, which I think is why people keep tuning in, because of some of that, insider insight we get to the players, not to mention all the new ones, up and coming players. And there are a few that are in the draw in Australia that we'll definitely get to when we're talking about how the Canadians have fared. Some who've already played, but some getting their first taste of playing down under at the Australian Open.
I'll give the case for Carlos Alcaraz, and I haven't even revealed who I'm picking to win this thing. But look, he did part ways with Juan Carlos Ferrero, but it's not like he hadn't had. Juan Carlos Ferrero was not there for him for every single tournament of the year last year, and it's not like he wasn't training with his previous camp already and sort of had his team set. That I don't think this is a loss. He's been toying with and tweaking his serve technique to get even more life on the first serve and more action, which has already improved a staggering amount. And his level that we saw at Flushing Meadows, that final, Jannik was lost in what to do against the way Alcaraz played there. His mix of a heavy topspin on the forehand ball, sneaking to net, use of the drop shot, the way he defends from the corners. Now he can pull the trigger on the backhand down the line at any moment, it seems. He has all the weaponry, and we've seen him dial it up to 11 a number of times. That I certainly think he's going to fare better than he did last year, which was a big disappointment for him, losing in the quarterfinals to Novak and Djokovic put up an unbelievable performance, but Carlos then looked a little tactically lost. And I think he has a little more clarity in the way he wants to play and the way he has to play. Not just against Jannik, but just sort of the rest of the tour, understanding how to use his game to the best of his abilities. And like, if we get into the draw just quickly here, top quarter, I don't see, and that's where Carlos, of course, is with the number one seed here. I don't see anyone troubling him whatsoever.
No, same. I mean, Dimmenauer looms maybe in their quarterfinal match, and he'd have the crowd behind him for sure. And he's a hustler, and he's going to grind it out, and he's going to cover the court like, no one else since Michael Chang. But I don't see him beating Alcaraz. And, before we get into the draw here, just one other question that popped in my mind as you were talking about Alcaraz is, working on his serve.
Yeah.
How hard is it for a professional tennis player, who've had maybe the same motion for their entire, upbringing and whatnot? Like, how hard is it to go back and retool something as important as your service motion? Because, obviously between the two of us and those who listen know, you're the far more established tennis player, and you're a pro, and you're coaching, and you're still playing in events and everything. And for me, being a total hack, I can go out and try new things, and it's not like I feel like it's easier maybe for me to try something new because I don't have the second nature of some of my shots where it's been ingrained in me for so long. But
right.
How difficult is it for someone like a pro like Alcaraz to go out and make those adjustments?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, I'd say one thing working in an athlete like Alcaraz's favor is how gifted and how impressive he is in terms of being able to do so many things, that if it is sort of a biomechanical change to when he's taking the wrist back, or if he's loading the racket a little more to the left or rising it a little bit earlier, it's so specialized now that they're working with these biomechanics serves experts. We saw Aryna Sabalenka obviously retooled her serve, as you mentioned, a few years ago and turned it into a great shot. I think one of the hardest things is like a grip change, and someone like Coco Gauff committing to a big change on the forehand. That stuff is very, very challenging and requires so much hours of work. And Gauff was also retooling her serve. And if you remember at the US Open, she was getting emotional, almost working through it. I think that's incredibly tough, at least for Alcaraz. For me, it's not like a full kind of redo. It's not like you're changing from platform to pinpoint, for example, where your legs are separated to now you're loading together with the two legs. That's a much bigger change than maybe doing something a little different with your arm. But you still have to learn that muscle memory. So you got to repeat that action again and again and again and again to get that comfort level to do it. So it's
and these guys are afforded the time to do that, obviously, because
exactly
maybe a week, a year, and then they're back to it. So there you go.
Exactly.
Great answer. If we move down from that top quarter, I really like the second quarter. You've got Rublev in there. You've got Zverev in there. Felix Auger-Aliassime. Very excited to see how he does this year at the majors, because although last year he got his game back into the top 10 and he had that great run at the US Open, that's fantastic. Now, can that become the norm? Can we expect that kind of play from Felix at the majors on a more regular basis? Because before the US Open, it had been a long time coming, it felt like, since he had something like that happen.
I would love for it to happen. Look, he continued that on post US Open, and then you're sort of deciding, is this the new Felix? Is this the Felix that we should always see? Is it more, he always tends to play really good tennis in the fall, so are we going to see more inconsistencies in 2026? I'm going to be glass half full, just with the way he was committed to his tennis and kind of this aggressive game style, taking the ball earlier, trusting his forehand, his serve in big moments, coming to net when he needed to. I'm just a little worried about the draw he has, which is a difficult draw. I mean, Lerner Tien is a really good player. He's in his section. And the very resurgent Daniil Medvedev kind of looks like the Daniil of old, that I wouldn't be surprised if he's making a run and getting himself back in the conversation at the latter stages of slams again.
Well, he's my semifinal pick here. And on last week's episode, where we were given some of our predictions and stuff for 2026, I think I mentioned that, to me, Daniil Medvedev is a player who's primed to have a much better season than he had in 2025. He's the 11th seed here at the Aussie Open. To be honest, I thought he was going to be seated a little lower than that, but still on the cusp of the top 10. And to me, he's hungry for it. He wants to get back there. He's still in his late 20s. It's not like he's over the hill by any stretch. Rublev has never been consistent at getting past the quarters, anyways, of the majors. Zverev, I mean, you throw everything with him out the window when it comes to the majors. So again, no consistency there from him. Felix, I don't want to be negative on Felix because you said glass half full, which is great. But between those four players, Medvedev has the more proven track record at the big events, and I think he really badly wants to get back to reminding people that he's a top 4 or 5 talent on the tour.
Absolutely. And he plays really well in Melbourne. I think the courts suit his game incredibly well. It was only a couple of years ago that he lost in the finals in 5 sets to Jannik Sinner. I mean, this wasn't ages ago. It's not like Daniil Medvedev is in his mid-30s and giving it one last shot here as well. He's still a pretty young guy. Late 20s. So there's no reason to think he can't get back. Just a couple words on Zverev, by the way. He beat our Canadian Gabriel Diallo in the first round.
Boo. Sorry.
Boo. You know what? I was watching some of this match. Zverev looked terrible. He looked hanging out on his back foot. His forehand was a mess. He had no rhythm. He wasn't stepping into the court. It looked like, I almost felt like Diallo could have done much more to even impose his game, get forward to net. He did it okay in the first set, and I don't know if he took his foot off the gas or, the lights kind of blanked and he was like, oh, maybe I can win this match. And then he got a little tight. But Zverev he was not playing like a top 5 player. He hardly looked like a top 20 player, just hanging out on the back foot. And I have no confidence in him going far in Melbourne based on that performance. Maybe that'll change and something will click for him. But to me, he's as vulnerable as ever. And I think it's a great opportunity. If Rublev is going well, why not make a push back into the quarters here? I don't think he'd be ready to beat a Medvedev, but Zverev is looking incredibly vulnerable. I don't trust him whatsoever to make a run here.
Love to hear it. I'm not a big fan. I've been outspoken about that, and that's
for sure
really going to change. I am a big fan of Andrei Rublev, though. I got to tell you, in terms of like non-Canadian players, I just love how much fun he is, and had a great chat with him last year at the National Bank Open. And we get those players for small windows at the National Bank Open because there's so many media members that want to chat with them, especially at that first sort of hard court major event of the summer swing leading up to the US Open. And some interviews, there's only so much you can get out of, 5 to 10 minutes. And I felt like with him, it was a gold mine. He got into his coaching relationship with Murat Safin, and how that's working out behind the scenes. He was in a playful mood, good sense of humor. He's got the big red hair. Like, he's just fun to talk to and have around. And when you have players like that are, good to you when you speak to them, you want to see them do well, you do. So I'd love to see Rublev have some success, not at the expense of Felix, but at the expense of anyone else, I would say.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Always root for Andrei Rublev. Second half of the draw, third quarter, Lorenzo Musetti is the 5th seed. Novak Djokovic, 24-time Grand Slam champion. And we know Melbourne is his very best slam. He is the 4th seed. Also lurking in this section, number 9, Taylor Fritz. We got Jakub Mensik. Brandon Nakashima, seeded 27th, just made a final. I think a lot of people, you're not going to write off Novak to make the semis. Look, there's the 2 best players in the world.
Novak has a good draw.
And he has a good draw.
I think he's got a great quarter.
Fritz
isn't, striking fear into my heart.
No, he looked very shaky at United Cup, and I think there are some physical concerns over where he's at right now. So, and I believe Novak leads their head-to-head 11-0.
Yeah, something crazy like that. That sounds right. So, and hey, look, Novak is 38, turning 39 this year. That's crazy, by the way. But he knows there's only so many more opportunities, and what better place to get into that groove than a tournament you've won 10 times before, right? So you count him out at your own expense, at your own peril.
Absolutely.
And he's admitted that in best of 5 against Sinner and Alcaraz, it's going to be next to impossible, but it's not impossible, right? There is always that chance. And if he can keep the first few rounds short and limit his time on court in the Aussie heat, to still have some gas left in the tank, and maybe someone will push Alcaraz or Sinner. I would never, ever count this guy out, even at the advanced age that he is at now.
Which slam does he have a better shot of winning at this point?
Wimbledon
or Wimbledon.
I think Wimbledon. Yeah, I think the Heat is. I mean, he's won it 10 times, so he's obviously conquered the elements. But I don't think the Heat gets any easier as you get older.
Yeah.
And Wimbledon is still such a niche surface. I mean, everybody knows how to play on a hard court now, but grass is still something that a lot of guys don't have a whole lot under their belt in terms of match play and practice. And he's got obviously an abundance of that. So I would definitely give the nod to a Wimbledon over an Aussie Open title at this stage for him.
Stan Wawrinka, wild card here, playing the Australian Open for the last time, 2014 champion. Hey, I would love it if he could win a match. Has a winnable first round match for sure against Jera, and then we'll see what happens after that. Stefanos Tsitsipas, pretty hard to back him, right?
Yeah, I almost feel like speaking about him is purely based on past performance, because just mentally speaking, I don't know what his headspace is to start 2026, but it sure seemed like he was distracted in 2025.
No kidding. Jakub Mensik, obviously the Miami Open champion last year, big dangerous game. He's kind of had a bit of a malaise the last few months. We haven't seen him make a run at a tournament, but
it's a good word, by the way. That's malaise. Yeah.
I should give him credit though. He kicked off the season well at the ASB Classic and picked up a title, so he could be back on track. And
I've got him on my backup list of players here that could cause some damage for sure. I got him in there. I got Fonseca in there, and look out for unseeded Hubert Hurkacz with his serve click it. So don't forget about Herbie.
Don't sleep on Hubie, who took out Zverev at the United Cup, and he got jacked, by the way. Over he came back ripped. Some photos were circulating, and the tennis Reddit community was enjoying his new physique. He's definitely added some muscle, and I still think he has one of the best serves in the world, and seems to have a good thing going with Nicholas Massu. So he's dangerous lurking. We go to the bottom course.
So damn nice dude. He's just such a nice dude, eh?
He is a really nice dude.
Yeah.
Bottom quarter. I mean, this is the match we got to circle. There's one, I think, incredibly exciting potential match for Jannik Sinner.
Shelton Sinner?
Not yet.
Oh,
Fonseca Sinner. If that happens in the third round, we get kind of that taste of where the Brazilian is at and how close or how far he is from the two superstars. And I'd be very interested to watch it.
I might eat my words, but I don't think he's that close yet. I don't.
Could he get a set?
He could, but I wouldn't expect it.
Really?
Okay. Yeah, I really feeling that Sinner is just primed to go here. That's my Then go ahead. Talk about some Canadians too, eh? Chapeau's in here.
Yeah,
right, Chapeau, who could get Casper Ruud in round 3. By the way, how cool was it to see Casper Ruud playing a tiebreak set against the one and only Roger Federer?
Amazing.
And I mean, people say that Federer won that tiebreak set. You wonder how much Casper was putting into it, but hey, look, if I'm out there against Roger Federer and I'm Casper Ruud, and I don't care that they've played each other, a handful of times during their careers, I'm still getting butterflies if I'm Casper Ruud and feeling a little nervous in front of a packed house, even in a practice set or practice tiebreak rather. But just so cool to see a 44-year-old Roger Federer still, dancing around the court. My God, I'd love to see him come back out and play Wimbledon one more time just to, look. Boris Becker played Wimbledon one last time, when he was still playing, but not very much. And he wasn't 44. Although the guy seemed older back then, maybe just because we were so much younger, if that makes sense. But Becker always would have been dangerous on grass and always dangerous at Wimbledon. And I feel like, Sampras, they talked about it for a couple of years after he retired. Off he'd just come back and play Wimbledon. And, Roger won't do it. But if he did, he could still beat a good chunk of players out there.
For sure.
Grass. And he looked great going against Ruud there, and that was super fun. It's just great to see him back involved with tennis and out there hitting. And, we've said it before, we'd love to see him and Rafa, which they've alluded to, hit up that exhibition tour and give us some matches across the globe.
Oh my gosh, they would sell out packed stadiums watching those two play. Federer's still just like the smoothest player of all time. Just even watching him in that short form tiebreak with Casper Ruud. I think it's a good draw for Denis Shapovalov for sure. Gets a wild card and has an opening here. Marin Cilic is in his section, but I would probably favor him on a hard court against Casper Ruud if he gets there. We just don't. The volatility of Denis Shapovalov, I think the mind what's going on between the ears is often what is holding him back. He looked really bad his first match of the season, but he can turn it on in a heartbeat as well. I would like to see Dennis versus Ben Shelton. That's a match I would love to see at the Australian Open.
round.
Two huge hitting lefties in the round of 16. Yeah.
Yeah, sign me up for that one too. Hey, with Chapo, who knows what you're ever going to get, right? It's is this the year that he finds some of that consistency and maturity? Maybe now that he's married, that brings with it a little bit more life experience and patience. Who knows? One Canadian that we do got to mention quick is Liam Draxl. You've spoken to him countless times on the podcast, and this was his first Grand Slam main draw. Yeah. And only the second tour event he's ever played after the National Bank Open. So the fact that he qualified here for this one, I think, is super impressive. We've been impressed by his game when we've seen him play in front of us. And even though he went out in round one, what a valuable experience. And that first round prize money ain't bad, even when you lose.
Oh, yeah. I think life-changing there for Liam Draxl, reaching his first Grand Slam main draw. I'll just note his last two matches, his second round qualifying, his opponent served for the match and he came back. And his final round of qualifying against Mackenzie McDonald, who's been a pretty strong player in the past, he was leading Draxl 6-3, 5-3, 30-15. Draxl came back and turned this match around, which is astounding. They had one electric point at 30-all where Draxl was defending it. He was off the screen. The camera couldn't even see him. He was chasing down overheads. And he plays with just all this fire and passion. The crowd was so into it. So huge comeback win and qualified. And so congrats to him for that big moment.
He reminds me a bit of Layden Hewitt. And I think it's maybe a lot of physical appearance. He reminds me of a younger Layden Hewitt.
Yeah, I can see that.
Fiery personality, the blonde hair as well. And yeah, congrats, Liam, on how you handled yourself down there for sure. All right, who are we picking for the men here to get to the semis?
Okay, I mean, top half
first.
Yeah, top half, obviously, pencil in Carlos, no question. Carlos Alcaraz in that semifinal. And look, I looked around. I would love to have the guts to say Andrei Rublev is going to make his first career semifinal. But I'm just, like you, I'm high on Daniil Medvedev. The way he played in the lead-up week, he just looked like himself again. He's winning titles again. He's going to get himself back in the conversation at Grand Slams. Whether he's going to win majors again, he has the one, I'm not sure about that, but he's someone who belongs at the tail end quarters semis. So I have Daniil and Carlos top half in the semifinals.
Same here. Those are my two. Yep.
Okay, so we know Jannik Sinner is there in the semifinal. Is Novak going to do this again?
I want to say yes. I just want to say yes because he's the old guy. I just want to root for the old guy now. You know what I mean? And
I wanted to just go someone different. And
who does that? Who in that quarter?
Well, here's what's going to happen. No, Jakub Mensik is going to knock him out in the round of 16. And he plays a physical enough brand of tennis. The way he hits the ball, the way he serves, he's going to outlast and wear down Novak. And that will open the door for Lorenzo Musetti to reach the semifinals here.
Okay. You haven't talked about him yet.
We have not talked about Musetti. I was high on him at the start of the season to think he could finish world number 3 at the end of the year. So I got to back my words and say he can make the semis here in Melbourne.
And face Sinner, obviously, in the semifinal.
And get destroyed by Sinner in the semis.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go Djokovic because there's only so many more years that we can pick him. So I'm picking Novak for every semifinal of every Grand Slam tournament this year. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Put that out there. As long as he keeps his ranking high enough to be one of the top 4, because obviously all bets are off once that starts to slide, which inevitably it does for every player. But I'll go it's going to be Alcaraz Sinner in the finals to me. And Sinner's going to take this one, and I don't think it's going 5 either.
Jannik Sinner to win the 2026 Australian Open in 5 sets.
All right, hey, we had to have one pick that's the same, I guess, and it's not really a bold prediction on either of our parts. So there you have it, folks. Our Aussie Open picks for this year. You've got Sabalenka and Sinner, and I've got Rybakina and Sinner.
Yeah. Hey, look, way in the comments below. It's funny when this is up on YouTube. I think last year at a certain point we were accused of being Sinner haters because we were high on Alcaraz in one video.
Well, I was an Alcaraz. I was really high on, and I still am. but just not for this tournament here. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see if the Carlos stands come after us.
And by the way, picking someone to make the finals of a Grand Slam, you're still high on them, obviously. Okay. Only one person can win.
Right.
Hey, look, a couple other things I just want to mention before we close that slipped my mind, our collective minds, maybe earlier on the women's side. Yeah, we didn't mention Marina Stakusic, who is also playing in her first main draw in Australia, and she is a really good friend. She's a great friend of the podcast, and so we're rooting for her. She plays Priscilla Hahn, Australian Priscilla Hahn, in the first round, who's a wild card. I think Marina can take that match quite comfortably, actually. So it'd be great to see her get on a little roll to start the year, but always exciting when you see a player and a Canadian player play their first slam at an event, not her first slam ever, but her first Aussie Open appearance.
Yep.
Also want to mention Gabby Dabrowski, of course, in doubles. And gosh, I'm kind of sad. I am not kind of sad. I am sad that her and Aaron Routliffe are not partnering together this year, because they were just wonderful. They just clicked and they had a nice vibe. And Aaron's been on the podcast so many times the last few years, and just one of the nicest people around. But Gabby's reunited with Luisa Stefani, who they made the U.S. Open finals, or was it semifinals, a few years ago, before Stefani went out with a pretty horrific injury that kept her off tour for many, many months. They're reunited. They had a great chemistry back in the day, so let's hope that can pick up right where it left off. And truthfully, I think you could put Gabby Dabrowski out there with just about anybody, and they're going to be a threat.
Definitely. Hey, and a quick shout. I thought she might make a return and play Melbourne. Bianca Andreescu doing the grunt work, really, going down and playing a W35 in the States and getting the win. Look, her ranking with all the time that she's missed, that it dropped down to about, I think, 228 the last decade. Yeah. So a lot of respect to her for dropping down a level and I think just getting some matches under her belt was the goal. But obviously she's still there. It's not the same competition, but to take care of business as the top seed at a women's 35 and roll to a title, nice confidence boost to start 2026.
Hey, if Andre Agassi can go back and play in the minor leagues of tennis like he did back in 1997, why can't anybody else? And it worked for Andre. It helped him get his game back and return to number one and win multiple Grand Slams. And I still think that Bianca, if she can, my God, just knock on wood, stay healthy, I think she can still win big titles and still contend one day at another major.
Thank you guys so much for watching us at Matchpoint Canada. If you like our work, follow along, hit the subscribe button below.